technology. And the reason I say it's a bad animation is not the technical quality, but what it's portraying. We're seeing here a gantry on a building site, which is using a nozzle to print out the walls of this building and a pick-and-place device to place the lintels and the floors before the rest of the building is printed. But look at the building itself. Straight lines, square windows, boring. This technology gives us tremendous freedom because there is no cost in complexity. So you can print curved walls, you can print walls with textures just as cheaply and just as fast as you can straight featureless walls. So that's why I don't find this animation particularly convincing or exciting, but it does show the way forward. Let me show you what I think the way forward for 3D printed architecture is. I think 3D printed architecture is going to look like this. I think it's going to look like Adobe buildings because Adobe buildings are basically built out of mud. And 3D printed buildings are going to be built out of extruded cement. And they will need the same strong walls, they will need the same very heavy, visually effective supports for succeeding walls, for succeeding floors. A 3D printed building will probably look like this. Very interesting. It won't have a regular structure. It may have round windows. It may have textured walls. And because it won't look like a manufactured item, it will be much more accessible for the owner to change it, to dig a hole through it and put in a new window, and it'll fit right in, to make an extension by hand, and it'll still probably look pretty much like the rest of the building. So that's what I think 3D printed architecture is going to look like, and it's going to be, I think, very interesting. Elements inside the building can also be 3D printed. Screens like this can be made out of plastic just as easily as something that's manufactured on an assembly line and is just the same as 100 or 1,000 other installations across the country. So 3D printing, the use of digital models, gives us a democracy of innovation. These are some of the open source programs that I use, and I teach at UCSC. The main one is Blender, which takes the place of 3D Studio Max and I used to license 3D Studio Max as a professional animator. Each seat cost me $5,000, and to keep each seat active in my studio cost me another $1,000 a year. Blender is free. Blender is just as good for everything I want as 3D Studio Max ever was. Don't want to buy Photoshop, you can use GIMP. You don't want to buy Illustrator, you can use Inkscape. Inkscape, in my opinion, is slightly better than Illustrator in some respects. All of these expensive programs, which you had to have to be creative a few years ago, are suddenly available. Almost as good, very often as good, for free. Again, 3D printer, this is a printer but metal, $500. The material is very cheap. A reel of the plastic extrusion filament, which can be used with this, is about $30, and it will produce a lot of material. It will last you for weeks. This is a shot of a device of an item being made on an extrusion printer. So as I say, I don't think this is going to be a household technology, but everything around us, buildings, vehicles, products, movies, television shows, is going to be affected by digital modeling and the uses of digital models in all of our technology. It's a very interesting time, and I think that's about all I've got to say right now. So thank you for listening, and I invite any questions you may have.